By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid.
More in this Ravens-Steelers game. Again, Baltimore doubling up Pittsburgh, both teams sitting at 10-5. If you were to look at the NFL standings, specifically, obviously, the AFC North, Pittsburgh is technically in the driver's seat after these two teams split their regular season meetings. But again, we've still got games to be played here in the regular season, a couple, for each team. With week 18 only a couple weeks away, but of course 17-game season. We all know that by now. The AFC standings, the conference standings in general, you have the Chiefs at the number 1 spot, 14-1, and followed by, of course, the Bills, who really should just neuter the Patriots tomorrow. I mean, so at least they'll stay alive in terms of trying to chase that number 1 seed, and we'll talk more about that game in a bit. Steelers are at the number 3. The Texans are basically locked into the 4 seed because they have won the AFC South, and I don't think they're going to leapfrog anybody. Then you have Baltimore at 10-5 in the 5. And then, of course, you have the Chargers, the Broncos, rounding out 6-7 after they played the other night on Thursday. More compelling game than a lot of people expected. And outside looking in, barely with a path. Indy, Miami, and Cincinnati. Personally, as a Bengals backer, I'm hoping and praying that this finds a way, and it is possible. There is a case to be made for Cincinnati still to sneak into a wild card spot, but we can explore that a little bit later on. What I want to touch on here with this game today is, I think a lot of people will, especially from a gambling perspective, Brady, will come out of games like this and have to have a take, a reaction, a feeling about what this means going forward. And I just didn't feel like, and I don't know how you felt, I didn't feel like this game was really an indictment of Pittsburgh in any way, simply because as good as Russell Wilson generally was today in terms of, finding a slew of pass-catching options, most especially a guy like Jaylen Warren out of the backfield. Obviously, Calvin Austin was reliable. I really thought that Pat Freiermuth was going to be more involved. He had 6 targets last week, 3 today, caught them all, 16 yards. He sunk a parlay. I only needed him to 20 yards. I was pissed about that. But it's not an indictment of the Steelers because no George Pickens. 2 straight weeks of no George Pickens, the clear number 1 wide receiver for Pittsburgh, who, say what you want about Russell Wilson at this stage of his career, and Tom Brady on the broadcast couldn't stop fawning about Russ and how he's turned back the clock and, but like borderline said he looked like prime Seattle Russ. I don't think I would go that far, but quarterback on quarterback love, I suppose. But this team is it's a different team. It's a different team without George Pickens. You throw Pickens back in there come the postseason, and obviously we expect to see that. Hell, he could have played today in theory. I think you're going to see the Steelers be a more dangerous team than what we saw today in what was a real narrative street kind of win, as we talked about earlier, for Baltimore and in particular Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely. He exercised some demons. They got the same season revenge there, which you kind of expect.
Yeah.
You don't expect either of these teams to sweep their opponent in any season, no matter how good or how bad either of these teams are. You would expect a split out of these two teams. And you're right, Pickens certainly makes a difference. Isn't this the 3rd week in a row now without Pickens? I thought it was maybe the 3rd week in a row.
It could be 3.
Yeah, yeah, and
I'll
you expect him back next week.
Real quick.
It's obviously a short turnaround.
Yeah. Last played December 1st, 20 days ago.
Okay. There you go. Now, you would hope he's in action on Christmas at home against the Chiefs because the Steelers really need that one. If you look at the schedule, the Steelers finish up the season with a tougher road to hoe than do the Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers will take on Kansas City. They get them at home at least, and then they also get Cincinnati at home. But that'll be a tough out, and Cincinnati could be in that must-win situation again. You're going to get their best effort almost certainly. And then the Ravens are at Houston. Tough to go on the road, but I think we saw that Houston is not necessarily in the same class as the Ravens are. We saw that today. And then they finish with Cleveland in Baltimore. And we know Cleveland is a shell of itself right now. So, Baltimore, I think you mentioned Pittsburgh in the driver's seat. They probably have the tiebreak edge. But I mean, it looks from here that Baltimore is going to finish the year 2-0. Pittsburgh could go 0-2.
So let me ask you, I'm looking at FanDuel right now. Baltimore, despite, again, sitting technically second in the division, minus 155 to win the division, whereas Pittsburgh is plus 125. Where would you put your money? And if you'd like, I can call up the final 2 games of the regular season for both teams.
Yeah, well, that's what I just did. They've got KC and Cincinnati for Pittsburgh, and you've got Houston and Cleveland for Baltimore. I'd have to go with the Ravens. They look like today. They looked like a well-oiled machine, and against a tough opponent. That's not always easy to do, to look your best against a tough opponent. I don't want to lay minus 155. I'm not going to get involved in that market. But, yeah, that's certainly they deserve to be the favorite, no doubt about it. And Adam, haven't they really kind of been the better team all season long anyway? Right?
Sure.
Yeah, I would say,
I think so.
I would say most people have them power rated higher than Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in Pittsburgh would disagree, but I agree with your sentiment. There's no doubt about that. This game between Kansas City and Houston, Patrick Mahomes, I can't even tell you like how many texts, on my like group threads today of NFL fans, I mentioned this off the top of the show. Should Mahomes have been out there? Was it malpractice? He had this ankle injury. What was he going to look like? And this is one of those games you come out with a reaction one way or the other, but you can't properly weigh in until the game is over, which is what, makes these things takes or negates takes in the first place. Obviously, if Mahomes had been out there, looked like crap, or just re-aggravated the injury, suffered something worse, of course, hindsight's 20/20. You can look back at it and say, stupid. Chiefs did not need this game today. Could have put Carson Wentz out there, might have won anyway, could have rested Mahomes. Instead, he plays, looks solid, no problems, relatively easy win. Now, he'll probably play next week, wrap up the number 1 seed, sit in week 18, obviously the first round bye, get 2.5 weeks off, and then Andy Reid and everybody, they look like geniuses. You know what I mean? So did you go into it saying, with any sort of skepticism about how this game was going to play out and how Mahomes was going to look?
It wasn't so much about Mahomes for me as it was the Texans' pass rush, the injuries to the Chiefs' offensive line. When I saw that this line flipped, obviously that was, a sign that the odds makers knew that Mahomes was going to go here. If you recall, the Chiefs opened up as a 2.5-point underdog in this game. And then obviously they closed as a 3.5-point favorite when the news came out that Mahomes was going to play. And I trust Kansas City. I mean, heck, I think it was the Super Bowl last year when he had a bad ankle. And it looked a lot worse last year than it did this year. And he hobbled around for, that last game or two or whatever it was in the playoffs, including the Super Bowl, and they won the whole darn thing. So, when he was inserted into this lineup, I didn't doubt that he wasn't going to be okay. I trust that their doctors know what they're doing, and they're not going to run risk with, the best player in the NFL and the hopes on a third straight Super Bowl riding on his health. But I thought Houston might win this game outright. I thought they do have a very good pass rush. I think they're number 2 in the NFL in quarterback sacks. And we know that offensive line is an issue for the Chiefs right now. That's how Mahomes got beat up last week by Myles Garrett and company. So for the Texans not to be able to get that pass rush and get a lot of pressure on them was surprising to me, and ultimately not be more competitive in this game because they could not shut down the Chiefs offense. That was surprising to me. But I think it's kind of the Texans, that underachieving Texans, a good team, not hard to win that division, but not a great team, not the surprise team we saw last year, just a better than average team, but not to the level of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, and no Tank Dell, certainly a concern going forward. We saw how emotional C.J. Stroud was after the fact. We can explore that a little bit more as well. Great news for you, Brady. Ohio State was driving, poised to score again, go up 28-0, but no, Will Howard intercepted. Tennessee ball.
Good. Slow down, boys. Slow down.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
That just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's a Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
This is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go here.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid.
Back with Brady, I am Adam. This is In-Game Live College Football Game Day on SportsGrid. Smarter to be on SportsGrid. We thank you if you are watching across SportsGrid TV, wherever you are finding our TVs or on your phone, on the app, wherever. Again, a bevy of options. And, of course, SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM Channel 159. However you are consuming us, we do greatly appreciate it. So, I mentioned before, obviously Tank Dell, if you weren't watching today, knee injury, a hell of a guy. I can't believe he caught that ball and came down with it and suffered that knee injury and held on to the touchdown catch. Incredibly impressive there for Tank Dell, but did leave this game with a significant knee injury. That is how it's been termed by D'Amico Ryans, the head coach of the Texans, and had to go to the hospital. What it means going forward, we'll see. But didn't look good, didn't feel good about it. And this is a Texans team, Brady, that is playoff bound, has already locked up the AFC South. Of course, lost to the Chiefs today, but is what it is. It's, there was really nothing to be gained or lost in terms of the win or loss. But, they suffered a huge loss today, and it wasn't in the win-loss column. It was Dell, especially if he is out for the duration of the year. They survived earlier without Nico Collins, largely because of Tank Dell. Nico Collins is back now and had a solid game. He didn't go off maybe to the degree that a lot of people thought he would, but 7 for 60, 10 targets. Dell was a monster before he went down, 6 of 7 for 98 yards in that score. If he is gone for the long term, as I think a lot of people suspect, is Houston a team that you even take seriously come the postseason? Because personally, I wasn't all that high on the Texans to begin with, and that was with Dell. Now without him, I mean, it's really hard to see this team going on any sort of run.
Yeah, I would agree. I've kind of been, wanting to fade Houston pretty much the entire season, and it kind of sets up with how they came into this year. You go back a few years, and the amount of wins that they had was like 3, 4, and then they go from worst to first, and they win the division last year. And so you expect there's going to be some regression when you ascend that quickly. You're bound to come back down to earth a little bit in response off of that, right? And it was also, kind of everybody watching what happened last year, the emergence of CJ Stroud as one of the best quarterbacks in this league. You saw everybody running to the window in the offseason. Give me CJ Stroud for the MVP. Give me the Texans for the Super Bowl. That always happens. There's always an offseason darling that people fall in love with. And I was like, hey, slow down. And yeah, they have kind of underachieved. I certainly don't think they have been what they were last year. Everybody knows about them now. They're no longer a secret. And I think they have not really necessarily lived up to expectations. Certainly injuries have been an issue. But, it's kind of like both of those divisions in the South, Adam, the NFC South and the AFC South. I don't think you really give much credence to either one of those champions. The Buccaneers have shown some life. It was a great win last week on the road at Los Angeles against the Chargers. I mean, they've beaten the Eagles and they've beaten the Lions. That team apparently can compete with anybody, and I don't know how they do it because it seems like they've always got a laundry list of injuries and, Chris Godwin out for the year, but they find a way to get it done. But again, the Falcons, the Colts, the Texans, I don't think those teams really scare anybody when the other, suspects you're looking at are the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Lions and the Eagles and the Bills. And no, I think those are certainly the SMUs and the Clemsons of the dance, if you will.
Tennessee driving right now into OSU territory at the 34, 3rd and 6. It is still 21-0. Ohio State is leading this game. The live line, which is locked right now, but a moment ago before it was 21.5. And so, coming back down to, earth compared to where it was, obviously. Now we're down to 20.5, obviously, with Tennessee moving into the red zone at the 19. So Brady started to report more points could be on the way here. And Tennessee looking to narrow this 3-touchdown deficit, live total sitting at 52.5.
Adam, if you're the Tennessee Volunteers at this point, obviously still very early in the game, we're only halfway through the second quarter. Are you okay settling for a field goal if it comes to that here?
I think, not to answer your question with a question, but where do I stall out? You know what I mean? Like, where's the ball? Because if I'm right now, they're 2nd and 4 at the 13. But let's say I'm 4th and goal at the 4-yard line, then I got to go for it. But if I'm, if I stall out at, where they are now at the 13, 2 incomplete passes or whatever, and I'm 4th and 4 at the 13, I think I would take the field goal. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. But you at least, I think, want to put yourself in position to go for the touchdown because we've seen how prolific Ohio State has been in the first quarter and a half. They've already got 21 points on the board. It's just one drive that they haven't scored. Field goals is not going to help right now. So the Tennessee, and now they lost some yards, 2nd and 9 on the 18. So they're going the wrong direction. Yeah. A field goal is not going to help them at all. But you're right. They might be forced to kick it. They might not have a choice.
Yeah, I just think, you need to – it's still early, Brady. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, Ohio State's offense has been very, very difficult to slow down so far, mostly in that opening quarter. But we have 7 minutes to go in the second quarter, and the whole halftime adjustments and all that stuff. These are two obviously good teams. Yes, Ohio State's the better team, but these are two good teams. If you do kick a field goal, you get a stop. You come back with a touchdown. Because there have been stops. We saw an interception on the previous series for Ohio State. If you can get a stop, you come back, all of a sudden it's an 11-point game. Maybe even decide to go for 2 there, and you can make it a 10-point game. Then you got a whole half to play. Yeah, that looks a hell of a lot different, obviously, than 21-0. So I don't think a field goal is the end of the world here. Now, they're 3rd and 9 at the 18. Heaven forbid they miss the field goal if they decide to go for it. That's a real punch in the gut.
If anything, a field goal gives you a little bit of positivity and momentum. Okay, we got a turnover. Yeah. We got some points out of it. We're no longer getting shut out. Let's get this thing going now. You're right. If they attempt the field goal and miss it, that gets pretty ugly.
Yeah, that's gut punch territory. We'll keep people posted on where all that plays out. We mentioned Circa Millions and Circa Survivor. Haven't yet seen the data on Circa Survivor. I'll look again, but Circa Millions, that's out. So we'll give you the most popular plays across the NFL on Sunday when we return.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
Oh, that just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking.
I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's a Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashed in.
Only on SportsGrid.
All right, Brady, the most popular Week 16 top 5 selections in the Circa Millions contest, a contest that you are part of. I'm curious how your contest card compares to what the consensus has given us here. These are the top 5 most popular plays. Again, not necessarily where the lines are right now. It's where they locked during the week. Some I very much agree with. Others we'll debate as we go game by game in a little bit. Bengals minus 7.5 at home against the Browns. Remember, Dorian Thompson-Robinson on the other side of this one for Cleveland with Jameis Winston benched. The Lions inside a touchdown, minus 6.5 at the Bears. The Eagles, you have the hook, minus 3.5 at the Commanders in this battle for the NFC East. The Rams, right at 3. 3-point favorites against the Jets. That one is at the Meadowlands. And primetime, Buccaneers, 3.5-point favorites in Dallas against those miserable Cowboys. How many of those did you have?
Let's see. We have one of those selections, and I feel very good about that. I want no part of the consensus at this point in the contest because I'm chasing. I can't afford to just swim with the masses here because I'm not going to advance if I do. I have to. I want to be, if not, some other game that is not one of the more popular games here. I want to even go as extreme as being opposite of what that consensus pick is. And we are on one of them, although it's not that big of a discrepancy here. We are on the Commanders. We took the Commanders plus the 3.5 against the Eagles. Now it's pretty much a 50-50 split there. You've got 1,272 selections on the Eagles, 1,227, less than 50, selections different there in which side. So it's not like either of those sides are not very popular. They're both very popular. We are on the Lions. I think the Bears is absolutely a contrarian play. The Lions do have a lot of injuries. But it's an attractive number on Detroit, too, at less than a 7. So I understand that. And the Bears have been a real train wreck as of late, even though they've been good at home against the number. The Bengals, I knew all week, and I'm struggling here with a guy on one of my other teams who wants to pick the Bengals. I'm like, dude, we're going nowhere no matter what happens in that game if we take the Bengals. If you've got almost 1,700 people in Circa Million on the Bengals and only a little over 500 on the Browns. Now I know the Browns look like an awful side, but no matter what happens there, if you choose the Bengals, win or lose, you're not doing anything. You're just treading water. So I think you have to switch to a different game if you're in chase mode here. If you're in the lead, you probably want to take the Bengals. You want to take some obvious plays that are just going to allow you to hold serve. You're not going to necessarily lose ground to the masses, and you're not going to necessarily gain ground on the masses. So it's different. And this is another thing I told my teammates going into this week and really throughout the rest of the season, Adam. It's as much game theory right now, if not more, than it is just handicapping games, right? That's the difference about a contest. We're not necessarily just saying who's going to cover the spread. I want to know who is a team that no one's going to be on, you know?
Sure. No, absolutely.
That's part of it too. There's a lot of games going on at once, not just trying to figure out who's going to cover. We're on the Lions. Let's see. We took the Cardinals -4.5. And let's see, the Cardinals, that is a little bit more popular than the Panthers. That's understandable. We're on the Seahawks +3. That is slightly in the minority in Circa to the Vikings. We took the Commanders, I mentioned, which is basically a 50-50 split. We took the Lions, which is one of the more popular plays. And then we also took the Ravens, which was actually slightly in the minority. You had 905 selections on the Steelers and 899 on the Ravens, and that was at -6. So we've got one winner in the hopper as we speak.
Brady, the data is out for Circa Survivor. 50 entries are live right now, which honestly is impressive compared to, we would have thought a month ago there'd be like 10 left. There are 50 still alive, and implied value per entry of about $285,000. There's only one of 6 teams selected that is sitting in double figures. Everything else a single-digit play. Would you like to guess the most popular play this weekend?
Bengals.
No, they're second at 9.
Bills.
The most popular play. The Bills. They're 4 to 7. The most popular play this week. We will tell you right after this.
On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career and might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. When he texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was clicking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Back here in game live college football game day with Brady Kannon. I am Adam Kaufman, and again, just the one college football playoff first round game that is going on tonight. It's not been much of a game, but the scoring, Brady, has slowed down. 21-3, Tennessee did on that previous possession have to settle for a field goal. They did get the stop, and the I almost call them the Titans. The Volunteers do have the ball right now, and it's around midfield. We're at the 2-minute timeout. It is 21-3. The live line is 18.5, a number we have talked about before. Then it ballooned to like 25.5, and now it's come back down. And the total is sitting at 48.5. How you feeling about your ticket now?
Feeling a lot better about that total. Yeah, the frenetic pace finally came to a halt here. Thankfully, the Volunteers just get a field goal. I was happy to see them not put that ball in the end zone. And also, I like to the fact that, it seems Tennessee's defense is starting to come around. They were kind of shell-shocked maybe early when Ohio State scored on its first 3 possessions. And then finally, the last 2, they've been able to get a turnover and a stop. So maybe the defense is now showing up. I don't think the defense is going to go away for Ohio State in the second half. So, yeah, the under doesn't look too bad right now. And, if you were playing in-game, you could have gotten a couple of really nice numbers. You remember when Ohio State scored so quickly to open the game, Adam, that in-game total immediately went to 52.5, and I think we've seen as high as 54.5, maybe even more than that. But in that mid-50 range is where we've seen this total get to, and now it's creeping back down closer to where it was prior to kickoff.
Just prior to the break, Brady, we were discussing Circa Survivor. The data is out, 6 teams selected, part of this week's contest as 50 entries. I don't know that it's 50 people necessarily, but 50 entries are chasing $14 million. Now, sadly, that does not include you. Doesn't include many of our friends, but when 14,200, yeah,
we still have Paul Bovey. Paul Bovey is still alive. He's a frequent guest here on SportsGrid. Comes on. He always follows me on Wednesday nights on with Gabe and Cam. So definitely rooting for Mr. Bovey.
Well, I don't know if he has the Packers, but that is the most popular selection. Of the 50, Green Bay representing nearly half the field against the Saints in prime time. 50 entries, 21 on the Packers, 42%. Then you have the Bengals, who you guessed at number 1, who are sitting with 9 entries at number 2. The Falcons are third with 8, the Bills with 7. Then you have, and this is not a game I'd want to go anywhere near, the Cardinals have 4, and then the Buccaneers, 1 entry, riding with Tampa here in this one. What do you make of the teams that were selected?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what, a team that really scares me, and they should win, but do you want to risk $14 million on the Atlanta Falcons?
Not for one moment. I was building out an NFL money line parlay earlier that I promise you does not pay me anywhere near $14 million. And I didn't even put Atlanta in that because I don't trust the Falcons this weekend.
Right. No, I mean, Tim Boyle, DeVito, Drew Lock, I don't care who's at quarterback. I mean, the Falcons, and now I've seen some shops go back to 10. They opened up as 10-point favorites.
With Penix.
The Michael
Penix.
Well, right. And then the Penix news came out, and then it kind of dropped to like 8.5 or what. Now I've seen some shops go back to the Falcons as double-digit favorites over anybody. Does not make sense to me. I'd be worried about that one. The Bengals, I thought you'd have to use them here because their last 2 games, Adam, they played Denver and Pittsburgh. You're not going to probably use them in either of those situations. Now, the Buffalo Bills, with just 7, there's only 16 entries that have the Bills left. I thought, certainly as a 14-point favorite, you expect there's going to be some people on the Bills this week. Maybe they didn't have these other teams available. But the Bills, in the final 2 weeks, they play the Jets and the Patriots again. It looks like the Jets are going to, it looks like the Bills are going to win out and have a pretty darn easy path. I mean, if you get through this, you get through Christmas, and you're sitting there in week 20 of the Circa Survivor contest, and you've got the Bills in pocket, I think you're feeling pretty good. So I'm not surprised it's not the most popular. I'm surprised there aren't fewer people on the Bills this week, because they would be a good one, I would think, to save. The Packers doesn't surprise me at all. This looks like the spot to take the Packers. Let's see, to finish up the season, they've got Minnesota and Chicago, division games. Those always get tricky. And they've got a warm weather team, a dome team coming into Lambeau Field in late December. That's not a good formula for success for the opponent here, that being the New Orleans Saints, who are completely decimated by injury. Jake Hayner at quarterback, Spencer Rattler. We don't know necessarily who that's going to be. No Taysom Hill, Olave. I mean, they're a shell of themselves right now, and they're also going into a very difficult environment against a better team that has, playoff aspirations, if not division title, on their mind.
I'm curious, removing your contest card, game theory, that whole contest, take Survivor out of it, and who do you have available and all of that. You're just looking at the board. Your favorite play tomorrow against the spread, who is it?
The Washington Commanders catching 3.5. I think they will win the game outright over Philadelphia. That was a play that jumped out at me very early in the week. Adam, we've been doing this show all season long. A pattern that I like it's basically with Dan Quinn and also Cliff Kingsbury. He has not been good against the number the week before a division game, and we saw that come true last week, albeit maybe tainted and miraculous. The Saints did cover against the Washington Commanders last week, and conversely, he's been extremely good in division games. So the week before a division game, not so good. Dan Quinn, excellent that next week when he's in a division game. And it's also same season revenge. He had that game nailed against the Eagles earlier this year. They let it get away. I think the same season revenge angle is a good one. Philadelphia's got a fairly easy road ahead. They've got the Dallas Cowboys and then I think maybe the Giants to close out the season, 2 division games, but we know those teams are very weak this particular season. But it's odd, no matter how good or bad or whatever between Philadelphia and Dallas, Philadelphia always has a tough time the week before the Cowboy game, and we saw them stub their toe again this year. They did not cover the week before they played Dallas earlier this season. I think this is a possible flat spot. They come off of a big win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got Dallas next week. They're also, become the darling in the newspapers. People are crowning them as the NFC representative for the Super Bowl. It's no longer Detroit. They're too injured. It's going to be Seattle. And boy, look out for Minnesota, or not Seattle. It's going to be Philadelphia, and look out for Minnesota. All of a sudden, Detroit's the forgotten man. I think maybe Seattle's a little bit fat and happy, or I keep saying Seattle. Philadelphia is a little bit fat and happy, and we're getting ahead of ourselves just a little bit. They've got a very tough test, I think, in the nation's capital, taking on the Commanders on Sunday.
Brady, I got to tell you, I don't know if we're good at this, if we're lucky, or if every once in a while the gambling gods respond. I only wish we had bet on some sort of exact outcome along the way, because we scripted exactly how this Ohio State-Tennessee game had to unfold before the half. We outlined it to a T. Kick the field goal, get a stop, score a touchdown. You can make it a 10 or 11-point game by the break. Well, right now it's 21-3. Tennessee got the stop, has the ball, 42 seconds left, 2nd and 10 at the OSU 15. Have to believe a touchdown is on the way. I have to believe it. We scripted everything else. I think it's coming.
I hope not. I hope the script gets interrupted here real quick and we settle for a field goal, because you know what I'm rooting for, this game to stay under the total. The in-game total did move to 51.5 in anticipation of a possible touchdown here.
I'm with you. I'm on Ohio State to cover in this game. I don't want that to have to get sweaty. So I'd root for a field goal here as well. But we'll see. 1st and goal at the 4. Does not make me feel like that is the reality.
Block that kick.
We'll let the people know when we come back. 35 seconds left in the half. 2 minutes left in this break.
On, Donner, and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh, yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tennessee scored, and while I would have thought I bet if it was the NFL, you would have seen a 2-point conversion try right there. College maybe a little bit more conservative, so go for the extra point. It's good. It is now, Brady, an 11-point game, 21-10. Ohio State is leading this one. We'll get the ball one more time, albeit just with 20 seconds left. No high expectations, unless, of course, we see a kick return for a score, something like that, or a long kick return to midfield and then a Hail Mary or something. But I don't think we're going to get points before the break, which would leave us at a 12.5-point spread with Ohio State naturally favored, which is half of what it was earlier when we were talking about it. So if you did invest when it was 25 or thereabouts for Tennessee, good on you. You got to be feeling pretty good about it. The total 54.5.
Yeah, I'm disappointed to see that touchdown. I was feeling really good when we saw that in-game total come back to 48.5. That's right, the ballpark where we want to be. And then the Volunteers, you got to give them credit. They have responded. After getting punched in the mouth a few times early in this contest, they have responded. They get the turnover, they get a couple of stops, they got a touchdown. They've got really the mojo going into halftime here. Like you said, I don't think we're going to see any more scoring, only 20 seconds left when Ohio State gets the ball here. They've got 1st and 10 at their own 25 with 20 seconds left. I've only got 15 points to play with in the second half. That doesn't feel like enough to me. Basically 2 touchdowns, and you talked about going for 2. Tennessee's in a position where they may have to go for 2 eventually. So that 15 is kind of, 2 touchdowns and a possible 2-point attempt by Tennessee. You would think we see more scoring than that in the second half. I thought for a minute there that, and Tennessee's defense has turned around, but Ohio State's defense has kind of fallen off a little bit. The offense for Tennessee has picked up, and that's kind of changed the tune here as far as this total is concerned. So it's going to be a sweat in the second half. I tell you what, I probably would play under whatever the second half number is. So you've got, 31. So you're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 23.5 for a second half total. I would play under that, Adam, because, again, I want to trust the original number that the odds makers set at 46.5. There were some 47s out there, but now the in-game total 54.5. That's about, I believe, as high as we've seen it. So that second half total is likely to be about 23.5. I'd play that to the under.
let me ask you this is just a strategic question, because you said, you did the math. The difference is 23.5. And you said you think the second half total might be about 23.5. Let's say it is. Let's say it is exactly that. 23.5, the discrepancy in this game right now. Why not just play the full game total and play it under? Unless, of course, the difference is in the juice, like minus 114 versus minus 110.
Yeah. No, I think just pick your poison. Depending on what other bets you've got going. Obviously, I've got an under for the game that's not a wonderful position right now at 46.5. I may have gotten 47. I don't think. I have to double check that. But and I don't know if I'm going to get invested in the second half alone. But that's, again, I'd say pick your poison, Adam. There's really not a whole lot of difference, and it kind of just depends what you have in pocket. Maybe you've got a situation where you can try and middle it, So to each his own there. But and if you look over, this is kind of interesting, and you make a good point about the juice. Over 54.5 at FanDuel is minus 130.
Well, that's
maybe
because
it is worth it to play the under here, right?
Money.
Yeah, so maybe it is worth it to play the under for the full game, because you would think the halftime line is going to be basically 110 either way, maybe minus 115 either way. But it's probably going to be basically a pick 'em. Certainly some juice in play here. Yeah, I'd take the even money and go under 54.5 if that's the case.
Yeah, and I was just looking to see if we had a second half number yet. We don't on FanDuel. Third quarter and fourth quarter are out, but not the second half. And so, 5 seconds to go in this half, and we'll play it out, and we'll get a number. Obviously, we'll let you know where it stands. I'll say Ohio State did just move to the Tennessee 38 with 5 seconds to go.
Wow, maybe we get another field goal here, right?
Yeah, the number has moved up to 55.5. We might get more points here.
Now the under was minus 132. The under at 55.5, the under was a heavy favorite, and then it just locked up. So I don't know what's going on now, but yeah, funny. 1 point, and you change 60 cents worth of juice.
Right. Huge difference for sure, depending on the size of your wager anyway. But, apparently missed the field goal. So, we'll get probably come right back down to that 54.5, and maybe even at even money again, or probably around minus 110, or might even go back to the minus 114. I don't think it's going to be even money. I think that was, baked into the possibility that Ohio State was going to drive a little bit. But, be a turnover on downs with 5 seconds left, and again, half all but over. But the game, a game that was super sleepy early in terms of is this going to be a sweat in any way, shape, or form? Now, regardless of which side you're on, you're not necessarily putting on a movie. You got something to watch here in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tennessee, I believe, gets the ball to begin the second half. Ohio State got the ball first and scored right away, right? I believe that's what happened. So Tennessee, and Tennessee does have a little bit of momentum. They got the field goal, which we talked about, that might be the worst case scenario, but they really built upon it. That came off of a turnover. They got another stop. Then they got a touchdown. So that was great. And now, on top of all that, they also have their opponent who just missed a field goal. So, yeah, I think Ohio State kind of sputtering here just a little bit. We'll see what kind of adjustments Ryan Day can make in the locker room at halftime. But, the Volunteers certainly riding a little bit of momentum here at the break.
So I'm still not seeing a second half number, but the number movement for the full game, interesting. The spread has moved to 13.5. And if you did want to lay it on Ohio State, then even money, right on the nose. The total has dropped down again. So we were at 55.5 a couple moments ago. Now we're at 53.5, minus 113 to the under, minus 115 to the over, Brady.
Yeah, I kind of like laying the 13.5 with Ohio State because it's under 14. And if Ohio State basically separates themselves by a field goal right now, you win.
Much more with Brady Kannon. We'll start to pick through these NFL games one by one. A busy Sunday on the way in Week 16.
On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe. Like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Back here with Brady, and again, halftime between Ohio State and Tennessee, and it is a 21-10 game opening round college football playoff. We'll keep you posted, let you know when the second half begins. Continue to look for live betting opportunities. Hopefully you've invested some along the way. We have guests on the way. That should be fun as well, but let's start, Brady, to get through some of these NFL games, because we've talked around a bunch of them, obviously, but our deep dives that I enjoy so much. So I asked you before your favorite play for tomorrow. You said the Commanders plus 3.5, and we can get into that game shortly. You've already set the table a little bit with it. I'm going to offer you my favorite, and I imagine it's pretty chalky. It's not that original, although it's not involved in that Circa Survivor contest, nor is it involved in Circa Millions, and I absolutely love it. And that is the Detroit Lions to cover the 6.5. There are some 7s out there against the Bears, but 6.5 you could still get widely available. I'm looking at the standings. NFC North, you have Detroit and Minnesota, even at 12-2. The Lions obviously have the edge. They are technically in that number 1 spot, but they are each 12-2. Over in the NFC in general, Detroit is number 1 at 12-2, but Philadelphia in that second spot, same record. Minnesota, obviously, dropped down in 5th. I mean, this is a massively important game against a Bears team on the other side that Detroit didn't cover against back on Thanksgiving, but, should have, definitely should have, but played a competitive game. There are a number, we always do the trends are your friends until they're not. There are a number of trends that would support investing in Detroit in this game. Let me read you a few. Lions are 9-0 against the spread in their last 9 games following a loss. That includes 6 double-digit wins. Of course, they lost last time out. The Lions are 5-1 against the spread on the road this year. Dan Campbell, 5-1 against the spread following a loss. The Bears, 2-14 straight up against the NFC North over the last 3 years. The rookie, Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, 0-4 straight up in the division this year. The Lions just lost David Montgomery, potentially for the season. Depends on how many people he asks along the way. But we're definitely not going to see him the rest of the regular season. So it's all eyes on Jahmyr Gibbs, who is going to feast against a terrible run defense in this game. It's a great matchup for Sam Laporta, tight ends. generally excellent against the Bears, and the Bears offense has been a hot mess in recent weeks since the change in terms of the head coach, coordinator, all of that. Everything, Brady, points to Detroit not only winning this game, but winning it going away. This should be a massacre, a statement win, a pump-up speech from Dan Campbell like you read about in that locker room that I hope we see footage of on social media, especially in the wake of losing Montgomery. I just don't see a situation where Detroit allows itself to fall out of the top spot in that conference.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you at all, Adam. What worries me, and I think this is really the only concern we have here about this game, is the injuries for the Detroit Lions. You've got Brian Branch is questionable. You've got an offensive lineman, Glasgow, is questionable here. Carlton Davis is out in that backfield. Dorsey is out in the backfield. I mean the secondary. Montgomery, you mentioned. Gosh, they had just have an absolute laundry list of injuries here. A lot of them happening recently. It seems like for the last month, I'm looking at when these guys went on IR. You go back to about mid-November, the 11th of November, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 guys that have been put on injured reserve in just the last month, and it's like they're losing a couple more every game. Now, thankfully, a lot of the guys on their offensive line, I mentioned one that is still questionable, but Frank Ragnow, the all-world center, was listed as questionable earlier in the week. It looks like he's going to be fine. That's my only concern. But I also, it was earlier this week that Dan Campbell came out and he said, hey, don't worry about us. We're going to be fine. I kind of think like you're talking about that pregame Dan Campbell speech to, the end all be all. I think this could be a real statement game for Detroit. Despite what they're lacking health-wise, this is not an incredible – and that's a wake-up call the last time. They really should have lost to this team. The Bears had them on Thanksgiving and let them off the hook. So I'm not going to disagree with you at all.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an emphatic win out of Detroit. I'm very much looking forward to it. And cashing that ticket, baby. I do want to spend some more time on the game that Brady likes so much because it's very relevant to what we just talked about. Could Detroit lose and Philadelphia to win? And then you have a new number one in the NFC. Not if you ask Brady. Brady doesn't see it happening that way. Commanders to win. We'll explore.
On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh, yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
So let's talk Eagles Commanders here. Again, Brady loves himself Washington plus 3.5. And this is a game, Brady. There are a number of games, half dozen or so games, maybe even 8 games, something like that, although I'm including the 2 today because I really believe the Chiefs and the Ravens were going to win those games, and good to see that they did. So let's say a half dozen between tomorrow and Monday that I feel pretty good about in terms of ultimately who's going to win. Now, the spread, which is a big part of what we do here, that might be a different story. This game, where you have Philadelphia as a 3.5-point favorite, this game, of course, is in D.C., I sort of back and forth. And ultimately, I did land on the Eagles. Not necessarily covering the number, but to win. I believe Philadelphia ultimately is going to win this game. It would be the 11th straight win for the Eagles. But the Commanders come into this game having won 2 straight. The Eagles took the previous matchup 26-18. It was mid-November after scoring 20 points in the fourth quarter. So the Commanders largely, obviously, were in control of that one. Jalen Hurts, he spread the ball around to everybody. Brown, Goddard, Barkley, Smith. Only managed 221 passing yards, but everybody ate. He did rush for a score because that just always happens. Jalen Hurts is virtually automatic rushing for touchdowns. The Eagles 5-0 straight up and against the spread in their last 5 road games. 4 of those wins by at least 17 points. Now, Barkley, as we saw the last time around, is in a phenomenal spot on the ground against this team. He went for 148 rushing and 2 touchdowns when he saw the Commanders last time. Still, clearly, tremendous spot. Bad run defense on the other side. Smith looks like his old self. Coming back from injury, is not so great a couple weeks ago. Last week, 11 for 12 in terms of the targets, catches 109, a touchdown against the Steelers. He is a massive weapon, obviously, for Jalen Hurts. And I just think there's a little bit of experience wins out here in this one. But this is a very important game for Washington. Philadelphia is chasing the number 1 seed in the NFC. I get it. But Washington's just trying to make the playoffs. And this Commanders team is sitting 7th in the conference right now at 9-5, with Seattle at 8-6 in the 8th seed outside looking in, and multiple teams, Atlanta and Arizona, if you want to believe in them, at 7-7. So this is not locked up by any means for the Commanders.
No, it's not at all. And you would certainly call it a must win. And oftentimes I like to bet against teams that must win. But Seattle, or I keep calling Philadelphia Seattle. I don't know why I'm doing that. The Birds, I guess. Something with the Birds. But Philadelphia is in a little bit of a must win situation, too, certainly if they want to get that number 1 seed. So I don't know if that situation really applies. But, Adam, I found it interesting that you said you feel Philadelphia is going to win the game. Whoever wins the game here is probably going to cover the spread as well, because teams that cover the spread, or teams that win the game in the NFL, they cover the spread about 85% of the time. So what that means is when favorites win, they typically cover, and when underdogs cover, they typically win outright. And obviously you have a short spread here. So if Washington covers 3.5, they're probably going to have a heck of a chance to win the game outright. And I think it just could turn that way. Yeah, and getting that hook is a big deal. They could lose the game by 3. I cashed my ticket. But I'm going to take it one step further, and I think they have a very good chance to win this game. Same season revenge. They were in absolute control of that game that you illustrated earlier this year. And you talk about their poor run defense. Now, I know they have not been playing world beater competition as of late, but it goes beyond that. This defense has been a focal point, and you talk about Dan Quinn, a defensive guy, right? This team was so strong on offense to begin the season, and their defense was kind of awful, really. I think that was a point of contention for the head coach, Dan Quinn, and he's really turned things around. In the last few weeks, this team has become, right now, in the last 3 weeks, this team is second in the NFL in yards allowed per rush. Now, again, I know the competition, it hasn't been Saquon Barkley on the other side, but they have made a point to turn this around defensively, and their pass defense has gotten better, and they also get a boost with Marshawn Lattimore in the lineup. This is a guy that they traded for right before the deadline a couple months ago, really hadn't been in action until the first time last week when he went up against his old team, the New Orleans Saints, played about 50 snaps. So he got kind of, working into game shape a little bit. I think he'll be 100% and ready to go now with a little bit of lather under his belt to give it a real good go. He's physical. He may take on A.J. Brown. That'll be a heck of a matchup. A.J. Brown a little bit banged up. Jalen Hurts a little bit banged up. They're both listed as probable, but, they are on that injury report. I know Washington is missing some key figures as well. Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, maybe not in for this game. He's currently listed as questionable, but they've been okay, without Eckler for a couple weeks now. Brian Robinson has really gotten the running game going. So I think Washington is in a real good situation here to return the favor, the same season revenge at home, catching that additional hook on top of the field goal. And we've talked about it a number of times here, Adam. Dan Quinn against familiar opponents has a history of tremendous success. He was an assistant with the Seattle Seahawks defensive unit, and before he got the head coaching job with the Atlanta Falcons. When he coached Atlanta, what did he do against his former division, the NFC West? He went like 4-1 against the spread. And then when he gets hired as the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, what did he do against his former division, the NFC South? Like 4-0 against the spread. Now he's going up against the NFC East again. And oh, by the way, his offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, when he was head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, 7-0 against the number against the NFC East. These guys are monsters against this division. And I think they get it done here at home as a home dog. That extra hook on top is nice. And like I said, maybe you sprinkle a little. I think if you're going to do this and you want to sprinkle a little on the money line, I put 80% of my bet with the 3.5 points, and I put 20% on the money line.
Brady, a team that plans to draft its next quarterback against a team that will be debuting, at least in starting form, the one it just took in the top 10 of the previous draft, albeit controversially at the time. That is the Giants against the Michael Penix Jr.-led Falcons. Now, the Giants, they have lost 9 straight. Falcons are not a good team. They're kind of perfectly mediocre and not out of it. They are sitting one game behind Tampa Bay in the NFC South for first place, trying to take this thing. The Giants are 1-8 ATS in their last 9 games. You mentioned, boy, this number is getting big. 8.5, 9 is where it sits right now with Atlanta, even with Penix at home in the ATL being favored. But whether it's Tim Boyle, Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, does it even make a difference? I'll push back on that a little bit, just a little bit. I think there is a hierarchy there. And it's the best one that is going to start. Drew Lock is the starter. And then I would go Tommy DeVito and then Tim Boyle. You might be on the same level with Tim Boyle. I don't know what Tim Boyle is doing in the league. But Drew Lock, at least, is the best of the bunch. And now we're going to see a Falcons team that is certainly motivated. I mean, you want to make the playoffs. I have no idea what that locker room dynamic is. We always, when Daniel Jones was benched, it was the locker room split. Well, totally different. You had a guy who, career giant, and Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets on the other side, versus Kirk Cousins, hired mercenary who already is expected to be cut, at the end of this year, and then the future in Penix. So maybe everyone's on board with this, but I think first and foremost, they just don't want to make the playoffs. Even still, this has to be a stay away spot, right? Because I don't want to put my money on New York, but I can't invest in Atlanta to win by double figures.
No, I would only be able to play New York here, and I think it is definitely an upgrade that Drew Lock is starting rather than Tim Boyle. I thought it was going to be Boyle. That's just news. Finding out here now, listed as probable, is Drew Lock. I think that's helpful, and he's had a couple of games, where he hasn't done too well, and I think he's a competitive guy who has some talent. So maybe this will be his best game. Maybe third time's a charm here for Drew Lock. We'll get into more of this game. I think there's some more to be said about this interesting contest.
Absolutely. Cousins was intercepted 9 times in 5 games. 9 times. No wonder he's right. Maybe we can get him on. Guest analyst on the show.
On, Donner, and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh, yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe. Like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Back here, in-game live college football game day on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Thanks for hanging out. We have Brady Kannon, of course. I am Adam Kaufman. We are with you until midnight Eastern, so we've got you for just south of another 2 hours, so a little more than halfway home on this show. And pleased to welcome in our next guest. We have Albert Wynn with us, Analytics Capper on Twitter, at Analytics Capper, who is giving out plays on the daily to his subscribers across all sports, be it college football tonight, NBA, college basketball, NFL tomorrow. I mean, across the board, the man is handing out plays for you, trying to make you and certainly himself money along the way. Albert, how you been, bud?
I've been good, man. It's been a couple months, Adam, since we've spoken. Things are going well. I have been struggling a little bit with the NBA. I went 0-2 tonight, but everything else is looking pretty good.
Excellent. Well, let's get into this college football game that we're seeing so far, because we lamented earlier in the show how it's just been a lot of chalk, which, if you're on that side, great. Like, we just want our bets to cash, right? We want our wallets to be fatter at the end of the day. But how upset the committee has to be with how this opening round of the college football playoff has played out, between the basically a blowout last night, even though the final score didn't reflect it. And today, most of these games really have not been that close. We saw here in this one, a giant lead right off the hop from Ohio State. It wasn't until late in the half that Tennessee turned this into a game, 21-10, as the second half just getting underway. Where were you on this one, and where do you think we're going in this second half?
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion, Adam. I mean, is it the most competitive games that we're looking for, or are we trying to bring in the most deserving teams, right? I think that can be mutually exclusive when we're having this type of discussion. Obviously, nobody wants to see just favorites. Nobody wants to see just overs, but it's really hard to win on the road in college football, especially this time of the year, and especially in night game settings as well, right? We saw that last night. Indiana couldn't get anything going on, especially after that interception at the goal line. And we're seeing that tonight as well, with Ohio State coming out in that first quarter with a huge punch, 21-0. Obviously, Tennessee is coming back a little bit at halftime here, but it's been a one-sided affair for these home teams so far.
Albert, what do you see this game doing as far as the total? And I'm interested in your opinion because I'm sitting here rooting for an under. I didn't like that Tennessee touchdown at the end of the half there. We saw the in-game total at halftime creep up to 53.5. I'm trying to keep this thing under 46.5. Do you see a real slowdown in the second half, or do you think there will be points aplenty?
Brady, you and I are both on the under for the full game. I would have jumped on the second half under if I didn't have any position pre-flop, to be honest with you. But, sometimes you got to take it on the chin. I do think there is a chance here. We know Ohio State's offense struggles. We saw that, outside of the first quarter tonight. We've seen that all season long. And the quarterback that we're seeing tonight has not been the quarterback that we've been watching all season long as well. So I do think the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to continue to struggle on offense in the second half, and then we'll see a game of field position hopefully in that second half. What I wanted to see, Brady, at the end of that first half, the roughing the passer call, right? If that wasn't called and the interception was completed, we would have had a really nice end to the first half there. But it is what it is.
So don't worry, I'm not locking into anything. I'm just curious as to early thoughts here. Next round, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, we got Texas against Arizona State, Oregon, of course, against the winner of this one. I believe it's going to be Ohio State. I'm very much hoping for I'll root for you guys with the total. I just want the Buckeyes to cover. That's what I care about here in this game tonight. Penn State and Boise State, and also Notre Dame and Georgia. We spent a lot of time on Notre Dame and Georgia earlier because of the tight spread for one and how it's flipped. Originally, we're looking at a 1.5 point favorite right here for Georgia at this point in time, but no Carson Beck. It's going to be Gunnar Stockton out there, quarterback. Do you have any early thoughts on any of these next stage of games in the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I'll briefly touch on that Georgia game since you guys already, double clicked on it several times already. I do like Notre Dame in that game. One of the principles I have in betting is I don't really like short favorites. So Georgia being -1, -1.5 is a little fishy for me there. I think Notre Dame has all the value. I think this is another opportunity for a team that just played, right? So they're not going to have the rust factor that Georgia might potentially have with the layoff there. So I like Notre Dame in that one. The one I'm most confident when I'm looking at the New Year's Eve or New Year's Day games, it's actually going to be Arizona State, Texas. Texas, from a roster perspective, they're always going to have the advantage when it comes to their talent, right? They have 5 stars up and down that roster. Offense, defense, even their special teams is really good. It's not Texas that I'm worried about when it comes to covering this large number. I just think Arizona State knows who they are. They're gonna run the ball. They're gonna play smash mouth football, and I think in college football, if you have a good rushing attack and a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, you're always gonna stay competitive in games. So actually, in that game, I was on Texas today. I'm actually gonna be fading Texas in that game. I like Arizona State with the points there.
Yeah, Albert, I kind of found it puzzling that Arizona State was getting more points than Clemson. I think Arizona State is a better unit than the Clemson Tigers are in 2024. Arizona State has been a solid team, and they've certainly played a better strength of schedule. I mean, they've got wins over Kansas State and BYU and Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. So the fact that, well, I guess it's the same where the game closed, but Clemson for most of the week was an 11.5-point dog. Of course, closed a 13.5-point dog, but that's where we're starting here with ASU catching 13.5. I'm with you. I'd be leaning that way. What about Boise State? Ashton Jeanty, can they stay within? And we've got you for another segment. We can get your answer on the other side here. But I wonder if you think Boise State can hang with Penn State. Can big game James Franklin turn the tide? Can he cover the spread in a spotlight game, Adam? We'll see.
We'll explore it with Albert Wynn, Analytics Capper, on Twitter. Again, check out his service, giving out picks across multiple sports on a daily basis with Brady as well. And we'll be back, updates on where we stand in that Ohio State-Tennessee game as well.
On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now.
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe. Like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Albert Wynn is here with us. We're talking through all things college football. We'll get to the NFL as well. But, Brady, you were just talking about this Penn State matchup. And I got to tell you, I really liked Penn State to cover in its big win earlier today. But there are, sometimes you look toward, I anyway like to look toward trends as kind of a form of confirmation bias. I saw an overwhelming trend going into this game today. I don't know if you guys knew this. Listen to this. In James Franklin, big game James, in James Franklin's coaching career, his teams are, and now it's 39, but was 38-0. They were 38-0 overall as more than a 6-point favorite against non-conference teams. And again, we're 8.5-point favorites in that game today against SMU, and Penn State did not look back. So make that 39-0 for big game James in this one here, Brady.
Yeah, and we'll get Albert's thoughts. That's extremely impressive. But you also know, as the spotlight becomes increasingly brighter, he has failed miserably against top flight competition and in big game. We joke big game James, against top 5 teams, top 10 teams. He can't seem to get over that hump. Boise is not necessarily in that category, but they're pretty close. And they have a guy a lot of people believe should have been the Heisman Trophy winner. It was probably just the wrong year for Ashton Jeanty to be in the Heisman conversation when you had Travis Hunter, the unicorn out there. But this guy, and we talked about it earlier, Adam, I don't know if anybody in the country can find a way to contain this guy. And I think Penn State's defense will absolutely be tested. Obviously, we've come back from the break and we're ready for your answer, Albert. What are your thoughts? 10.5 and a bigger spread now. Again, the competition is supposed to be better in round 2, and we're seeing yet a bigger number. Penn State favored by 8.5, 9 over SMU. I'm seeing an opener of 10.5 here over Boise State.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I love hearing that trend because I am on the opposite when it comes to, going with the trend. I like the contrarian side. I like bucking the trend. So the fact that he is 39-0, favored 6.5 or 6 or more points, I don't think it's going to get to 40, guys. I actually like Boise State not only to cover the 10.5, but I would sprinkle the money line here. I think it's Ashton Jeanty's time to shine. I think the story of him being or supposed to be the Heisman is going to continue for another week. So I like Boise State here. They're more of a complete team. Also, this is not Penn State being able to play at home in a whiteout environment. This is going to be a neutral field, and I think it's going to favor Boise State.
Guys, we have another touchdown, and again, Ohio State on the board. Smith's second score of this game, as a matter of fact. It is 28-10, Ohio State leading. That one took about 5 minutes, guys, so it wasn't as quick as the opening quarter of this game, but opening quarter of the second half, it took about 5-6 minutes. Ohio State is up 28-10, 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. Totals ballooned, 56.5 at this point in time. I am curious, though, Albert, when you look at 19.5, that's what Tennessee is getting at this point. Any interest there in terms of a live bet? Do you think that Tennessee can, has another little comeback in them to the point where the Volunteers have a way of keeping this game close by the end?
Well, historically, if you're going to look at Ohio State's, offensive struggles outside of today, that makes a lot of sense. But it seems like this is a game, I'm not watching the second half right now. It seems like a game it's snowballing down against Tennessee. It seemed like they were getting a little momentum there in the second quarter, but halftime came at the perfect time for Ohio State, and them scoring on the first drive like that. To answer your question, Adam, I would probably stay away there unless I'm getting really good odds for a three touchdown game. Right now at 19.5, I would stay away.
Albert, I know we've got you for one more segment, and I want to get into the NFL with you. We can kick this off, and we can bleed over into the next segment with your answer, possibly, if we run out of time. But I want to kick it off with, I think, absolutely one of the marquee matchups. It's not a very good card in Week 16. A lot of very ugly games. But a good one, I believe, is in Washington. The Commanders hosting the Eagles laying 3.5 on the road. Where do you stand with this one?
Man, if I had to just choose, I'm not going to bet on this side, but if I had to choose one, it would probably be Washington, just because it's another divisional round. Philly covered the first time. I think Washington here has a chance to cover the second time, but I'm not going to be the guy that's going to go against Philly, who's won 10 straight, covered all those games. The line of demarcation in terms of Hurts, Barkley, Brown has been perfect, so I'm not gonna go against Philly right now.
Brady, I thought you were gonna push off the NFL to the next segment so we could spend time on Albert being our first guest with a simulator behind him.
On, Donner and Blitzen! Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text, put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, hey, I never got the text. And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We're here, Brady, Adam, Albert, Wynn, hanging out. We're talking through some NFL as we keep an eye on Ohio State and right now clobbering Tennessee. Albert, you told us there are 3 spots in particular that you really like in the NFL this week, or no matter how much you like them, I guess, at least you plan to bet them and probably already have. So lay it on us. What are the games that jump out at you and what's a very interesting looking card?
Yeah, 3 very, very gross bets. And Adam, you've been following me for a while now. You know I like the really, really bad teams. And one team I have not been able to get on the right side on, and I don't know if this is pride, bias, or whatever, but I'm gonna be on Tennessee again tomorrow. They are plus 3.5 in in the dome there in Indianapolis. I think all the value here is on Tennessee. I know they're a bad team, right? I know they're 1-9 ATS in their last 10, but I think that this being a divisional game, this being a game where the Colts, I don't know, I think Anthony Richardson is still part of their future plans, guys, but there's something wrong with it this season, and I think he's ready to just close the book, close the chapter on this season. I think Tennessee's going to go in there and actually potentially get the outright win tomorrow.
Okay, so you've got the Titans.
Don't forget Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph he's the only reason that we have any. If it were Will Levis, you wouldn't be making that bet. So Mason Rudolph is the only reason that we can even talk ourselves into it.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely.
Now, I'm with you guys. I think it's a good thing that Rudolph is going to start this game and not necessarily come in relief, but they know what they're getting into from the get-go in practice this week. I like that situation for Tennessee as well. You've got some other real stinkers here. The Saints, the Jaguars and the Raiders. Pick which stinker you like there. The Panthers. Who are some of your others? I know Adam said you had 3 plays you really like. You've got a couple more there in pocket, Albert?
Yep. So the other one, you mentioned it. I like the Raiders tomorrow at home against Jacksonville. Just not a big Mac Jones fan. I think he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league we have today. But the Raiders coming off a very disappointing performance there by Ritter. I think he's potentially starting again tomorrow, right, gentlemen?
No, it's going to be O'Connell.
Yes.
Which is way better for you.
Yeah.
Makes me like it even more. Yeah, it makes me like it even more. Yeah, the Raiders being 2-12, but favorites at home is a really big, tell, but really big sign for me. They're only 1-5 at home so far this season, but they're favorites tomorrow. I like them. And then the other one, this one's a little scary because Detroit is so good, 12-2. But
don't do it. Don't. You can't back outside, the Bears tomorrow.
Jared Goff in a dome is amazing. That Detroit speed and explosiveness. They are without David Montgomery, by the way. Is amazing inside a dome on a track. But when you put them outside in the elements, especially in Chicago with that win, I think Chicago is going to surprise a lot of people tomorrow. I know that we've been asking for, the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams, to show us something. I think he's going to potentially show us something, especially with half that defense for Detroit gone as well. So I like Chicago to cover the 6.5 tomorrow.
Here's how they're going to surprise us tomorrow, Brady. Oh, my God, is Chicago this bad? We thought they had a chance of making the playoffs going. They're this bad? Well, maybe this rebuild isn't as far along as we thought.
That's what you are hoping, for sure. No, yeah. I see both sides of this game, quite honestly, Adam. I mean, Chicago's been very good against the number at home. You're getting an advantageous number here if you want to lay it with Detroit because it's under a 7. You're getting 6.5, which is not a wonderful number to take with the dog. But I hear Albert loud and clear. Sometimes you have to hold your nose, and it's these ugly dogs that come out ahead of things. And we know Detroit is really banged up. I mean, they may be the most injured team in football right now. I could go either way here, guys. But I want to ask you. I was just talking with a guy over the last commercial break, texting here with a friend, and I think it's kind of interesting. The Buccaneers were one of the top 5. In fact, I think they might have been the very most popular pick in Circa Sports Million because the number's 3.5 at Dallas. Now, the number's pretty much been 4 all week. It has kind of dipped to 3.5, but now it looks like it's back to 4. In the Westgate Super Contest, it is 4. It probably won't likely be as popular because of the difference in the number there. Where do you stand on Bucs and Cowboys on Sunday night, Albert?
That one's tough because Cowboys games are really hard to read. Not only because I'm here in Dallas, but you just don't know which defense is going to show up, because at their peak with Michael Parsons and that really good secondary, they can actually shut teams down. And Tampa Bay, they've been leaning on Baker all year. So you live and die by Baker, and that could play right in the hands of Dallas. For me, if I were to bet that game, I would probably be on Tampa just because they have a lot more that they're playing for, whereas Dallas is, supposedly tanking for a pick. But it's never that easy. And if it's the most popular pick on Circa, that's a stay away for me anyways.
Just before you joined us, we were talking about the Falcons and the Giants and how even with Michael Penix Jr., this is such a huge number. I mean, you practically have to lay double-digit points to take Atlanta, a game that obviously is important to the Falcons, trying to win that NFC South, and a team that is certainly superior to its competition, even though at least we have a better QB on the other side in Drew Lock compared to the guys that have preceded him on the Giants. But Penix, we just don't know what to expect from him, obviously, in replacing Kirk Cousins. The only argument really is that, well, can he be 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions over 5 games bad? He's got to be better than that, right? So that's why people want to look to Atlanta. Where do you look?
I actually look at the New York Giants here, guys. I think Penix is the better quarterback. Kirk Cousins started off pretty good, and you would expect someone coming off an Achilles to get better and strong as the year goes on, but he's actually regressed, and that's why he's getting benched, right, for this game. But I think Michael Penix, even though he's the more talented, obviously younger, faster, stronger, can probably throw a much better ball. There's no way that the playbook is going to expand. And I think at the end of the day, guys, I know the Giants are a really bad team. They're still professionals. The staff is still professionals, and they're going to be able to take advantage of a smaller playbook that Atlanta's going to be working with tomorrow. So I like the Giants defense to actually surprise and confuse Penix tomorrow early and often.
Albert, this one confused me earlier in the week. I made the 49ers a small favorite on the road at Miami. Miami opened as a 1.5-point favorite, and that really shocked me. Now we've seen money come in on San Francisco. They're in the role of the favorite. 1.5 points, pretty much the consensus number. What do you see happening in South Florida?
I like San Francisco in this one. I don't know if it's enough for me to bet it, but I think San Francisco is just a better team overall. And Miami, it seems like they've lost that locker room, whether it's the coaching, whether it's, Tyreek Hill with his, cryptic tweets, whatever the case may be. I just think that people in Miami, the fans have already lost interest, right? If you're not winning right now at this point in Miami, they're not going to have the support of the fans. And I think the players are starting to feel that. The fact that they are potentially releasing Calais so he can join a team that can win a title, like all those moves and all those narratives are telling me that the Dolphins players are ready to move on. Whereas San Francisco, Brock Purdy, he's still playing for that contract. I think he's still going to be motivated to get it done. And this is a small number, so basically just pick the winner. I like the Niners.
All right, we don't have time for another game, so let's do this instead. This is terrible if you're listening, but if you're watching, if you're part of the viewing audience, you can see the simulator setup that Albert has in the home office behind him. What percentage of the day is spent, taking swings versus handicapping your plays?
That's funny. I do about 20 to 30 swings. That's about it all day. 20 to 30 swings just to keep myself warm and stretched out.
What's your handicap?
I'm like a 6 to 7 handicap.
Oh, pretty
so
darn good. Very, very good.
Brady had that in his home office. I don't think he'd ever be sitting here in front of the computer. Albert Wynn, he is on Twitter at Analytics Tapper. Albert, thanks so much, man.
Thank you, guys.
On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now.
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. When he texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Back here with Brady. Our thanks again to Albert Wynn for joining us. We have Michael Fiddle on the way coming up in about 20 minutes, I believe. Some more NFL talk with Fiddle looking ahead toward tomorrow. Just want to update you, obviously, on what hasn't really been much of a game, certainly not much of a third quarter, but maybe that's a good thing for Brady Kannon. So Ohio State is up 28-10, Brady, which I feel great about because, again, I'm on the Buckeyes to cover here. But there's about 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Everything's locked up at the moment. OSU has the ball. All right, well, here's why. I was starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, you had a prayer in terms of this total. We've minimal points, just the one touchdown here in this entire quarter so far. Back and forth, all that. Now Ohio State is at the Tennessee 24. So things could change here in a moment. But I guess prior to that, you were probably feeling all right. Now the total's back up to 52 and a half. And as I say that, Ohio State is in the red zone.
Yeah, and the side up to 24.5, back to where we were earlier in the first quarter when Ohio State got out of the gate so quickly. And then it kind of trickled down from there. I'm trying to remember the low point that we ended up seeing. Maybe 13.5 at halftime was about the low point. 18 we've seen appear a couple of times, but now back up to the apex, 24.5. I mean, that is such a big number. And that's really what I was kind of hoping for. The way this game started, I was hoping for like 38-7 in favor of Ohio State. I hope it just became a one-sided blowout because you know how it is, Adam, especially you being a big NBA fan. When you have a blowout, sure, when a team wins by 30 points or something like that in the NBA, the game typically stays under the total. It's 110 to 75 or something. The other team, they're expecting 90, 95 points, and that team underachieves so drastically, it typically keeps the game under the total. So I'm hoping Tennessee doesn't score again, and that might get us home.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on it, obviously. Now, Brady, let's keep working through the NFL here. So a game that I've referenced a couple of times. We haven't really talked about it at all. Bills-Patriots. Does not expect to be one of the better games tomorrow, clearly. Buffalo, for good reason, is a 14.5 point favorite. Certainly a relevant number if you like the Bills to, win by multiple scores, jump on that 14. If you think the Patriots do have a prayer, jump on the 14.5. It's that simple. But shockingly, I mean, maybe the biggest surprise of this whole game is that this is the first meeting between these teams. They have not yet seen one another. They're going to face each other twice in the final 3 weeks of the regular season. The Bills at 11-3, still an outside chance at catching the Chiefs for the number one seed in the AFC. I don't think it'll happen, but again, mathematically, it is possible. 6-0 at home. Bills have dominated basically ever since Tom Brady left New England. But they have won 7 out of their last 8 meetings. These teams have combined. This is what's interesting to me. We have a total of 46.5. The Bills, as we know, are coming off back-to-back games that have resulted in, 80-plus points, 90-plus points. These teams have combined for 14-4 to the over their last 9 games. Bills by themselves have put up 30-plus points each of their last 8 games. This offense, led by the MVP, because he will be, the MVP Josh Allen, has been an absolute juggernaut. The Patriots, you can rely on them to allow a lot of points, but they'll actually put some up now that Drake May is at the helm instead of Jacoby Brissett. I do like Buffalo to cover the number. I wouldn't say it's my favorite play on the board, obviously. I would be more inclined to just play the over. I think we're going to get points in this game from both sides.
I don't think so. I think I'm opposite of you on both accounts, Adam.
Interesting. Well, it doesn't happen often. That's good. Roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo has been, like you say, 30-plus points for 8 games in a row now. I think that finally comes to an end. They have been through a gauntlet of a schedule the last few weeks. They play the San Francisco 49ers. Before that, it was the Chiefs. Then they play the Los Angeles Rams, and just an absolute shootout, 44-42, another shootout with the Detroit Lions. I think things finally slow down here and the Bills exhale for just a minute, because this is a vastly inferior opponent. The way they close out the season is against, really cupcake opponents in the Patriots twice and the Jets in between. They just have to keep winning. They have to stay healthy. They don't need to. There's no reason to win by margin. I think this is a little bit of a slow up. I don't want to call it letdown, but maybe that's the right word. I just don't think they are going to be all in like they have been the last few weeks against, pretty stiff competition. And now Kansas City wins again today. They obviously can't control if they're going to get home field or not. They just have to keep winning. I don't know if they just unload on the Patriots. It's also going to be frigid. The normal temperature we're seeing this time of year, what we're seeing for the next 10 days, 2 weeks in Orchard Park, New York, is around 35, 40 degrees for a high. On Sunday, it's supposed to be 15. Now, not a lot of wind, but I think it's just frozen tundra. And I think you're just going to see a running game, probably primarily out of both teams. And I think they dumb down the scoring, and it's not going to be too exotic. It'll be hard to throw the ball. It'll be hard to catch the ball. I think you're going to get, maybe it's a 20-7 final in favor of the one thing that could lead to a Bills blowout is they are typically a bully. They do beat up on bad teams. I just don't know if it's going to happen tomorrow.
That's fair. I think they will, but it's fair. I don't think people obviously are going to be universally laying such a big number. This is not like Baltimore going against the Giants last week or the week before, whenever that was. If anything, I would question whether the Patriots can keep pace to score points, right? Like, I absolutely think the Bills.
I'm not really betting on New England. I'm betting more on the fact that Buffalo will slow down for a minute because it's been
and I just don't see that happens against.
Yeah,
I don't think they slow down against this defense. This defense sucks. I mean, I get it, but again, they struggle with running backs. James Cook is serviceable. More than that, they absolutely struggle with mobile quarterbacks. Josh Allen is the most valuable player of the NFL. I realize, and they're home. Like, yeah, it's been a tough schedule, but they're home. Sleep in this bed with Haley Steinfeld. They'll be fine. They will be fine in this game. Another touchdown, Ohio State.
On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now.
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this. I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe. Like, it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
So, look, this has nothing to do with what we're doing, but it is gambling related. So I want to scratch an itch. I'm telling my buddy to tune in now if he's not watching already, because I'm going to be talking about him, and I want him to know. I want him to feel all of this. I want him to see this, and I want him to get your opinion on all of this. So he had a no sweat bet on FanDuel. As they handed out a college football based no sweat bet here for the opening round, and not even just that, you could have included the FCS games, whatever you want. Basically, it was any college football game yesterday and today, and so he rode the chalk and then some. He built out, finding the slip in my text here, and I like this. I didn't play it personally, but I like what he was going for here, which is going to hit, by the way. Ohio State minus 9.5. Notre Dame minus 9.5. Penn State minus 9.5. Texas minus 6.5. All favorites, all covering comfortably. Put them together, plus 1,100. 1,131 to be exact, plus 1,100. So he gets Texas, gets Penn State, gets Notre Dame into this game. All game long for the last 2.5 hours. I'm getting texts about, I got to cash out. This Ohio State is going to burn me. I can't, he's a Michigan guy too. So I hate even rooting for these guys. This is not fun. I said, you can't cash out. You gotta let this, Ohio State, and obviously jumps out to the massive lead. And even still gets down to, it's sitting at, God, where were they at this point? Up by, it was before the last touchdown. So they were up 27-10. And again, needs 9.5. Full quarter and change to go. And it's I think I might cash out. I think I really, I think I need to cash out. I mean, it's I'm
what'd you make the bet for?
80% there or whatever. 80% there. The pain it would cause me if Tennessee came back and won that, I got to cash out. Going. You can't cash out on this. If ever I have seen a winning bet, it is Ohio State to win by 10 points in this game. There is no cash out option to this game. Now, I bring all of that up just not so much to, tool on him, who I don't think cashed out, fortunately, but to discuss the concept of cashing out, because I know there are a lot of people that are, firmly against it. Never, ever, 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 ever cash out. You want to hedge? Like Scott Wetzel, big hedger. There are some people that don't hedge. Hedging's for gardeners, they say. No, it's like you ride or die with your bet, or to like if you don't, why would you cash out when if you like, is money that big a concern to you to where you need to get the potential winnings? Like, if you have enough to make the bet, you have enough for the sweat to put a rhyme together, right? How do you feel about the concept of cashing out within a parlay on the last leg, or a single game bet that you're not sure it's going to go your way and you just don't want to lose the whole thing?
I think it's a cop-out, Adam. I think it's the easiest way and the most lack of creativity way to just, grab some money. When you're in a situation like that, where you've got the last leg, or you've got a bet where hey, there's a reason they're trying to get you to cash out, right? They don't necessarily want you to ride with that bet either. Now, on the other hand, I'm all for hedging and trying to find a way to properly monetize. You've already put yourself into a good situation. Pat yourself on the back. That's an accomplishment, and get as much out of it as you possibly can. He could have bet Tennessee in game plus 24.5. That would have been a nice way to kind of hedge your bet, cash out, if you will. But I think just to take that money that the casino, smells funny when they're offering you this, hey, here's a tremendous 8-leg parlay that you can get 100 to 1 on, blah, blah, blah. I never buy that stuff. I'm not going to, click on something the casino's trying to tell me to bet on. Do you think they want me to win? So when they're trying to give me money, it's like, no, thanks, guys. I appreciate the thought, but I'm going to try and beat you. And I'm going to try and find a way to beat you. Yeah, I might not necessarily just I'm not a guy that is, completely against hedging. I'm not one of those guys. I've hedged plenty of times in my life. I like guaranteeing a profit, but the cash out is not the way I like to go about it.
There is maybe no one that I've encountered in this space who likes numbers more than Michael Fiddle, who is going to join us next. Fiddle just retweeting this as I listen to my buddy Adam Kaufman asking about proper cash-out strategies on SportsGrid right now. I'm joining him in 5 minutes. Hop it on. Ask me. The tweet is for 2023. Cash-out math. Let's get some cash-out math from Fiddle when we come back.